Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Opinion Machine, the show where we talk about all things gaming. My name is Killjoy, and today we're going to be talking about the game Ravenswatch. Ravenswatch is a solo or multiplayer roguelike game where you go on runs. It's set in a fantasy world, and essentially it's everything you'd kind of expect from roguelikes these days, all in a nice package, all using kind of characters from stories. From like childhood stories and things like that. So you have like Red Riding Hood, you've got Beowulf, you've got Romeo and Juliet, you've got various characters from these tales, and the idea is you go on different runs, you level up your character on those runs and face bosses like eldritch horror bosses, and essentially go from there. Playing it very much reminded me of Hades. It's very similar to Hades, at least that's the first vibe impression I've got, where you're running around doing those sort of things. Like, obviously other roguelites are the same. This seems to borrow that kind of, it gives me that vibe of Hades specifically. There is story for each character in this game, which is really cool. And the overall package is a really nice pick up and play kind of, hey, let's go do some multiplayer runs. Now, the game itself, like, let's talk about the good parts about this game. So the game itself has really good character variety. So for example, and full disclosure, I've only played one character in the game, and that's Beowulf. I'm trying to level him up to level 9, which I believe is the highest rank. I'm currently at level 6, and every time you level up, you gain more items to unlock on your runs, or you gain like other bits that will help you throughout your runs, like finding more advanced items. You get story and lore, you get character costumes, and there's a bunch of characters, but Beowulf specifically is your melee tank. That's kind of what he does. He's a melee tank, but he primarily is all about setting things on fire, so he's damage over time. Everything he does is you can cause it to set things on fire, and then everything revolves around that. So he has like a standard sword attack, he has his he has a slam attack, and he has a spin attack, and then you have two specials, which is either you set off a wyvern that sets fire to everything, or you do some big slashes and set fire to things like that. And his ability, when he triggers the wyvern, allows a couple of his moves to end up setting things on fire, igniting things, and then you can get buffs and bonuses that do more to that, so that there's more fire damage, or you can have it so that you do crit against those things that are on fire, or they explode and set other things on fire. So his whole game plan is get very good at setting things on fire, and he has a shield that you can also use, which you can upgrade to like shield bash and stuff. And so he's a very good beginning character, I found. Like I haven't touched anyone else. His whole thing is that you got to keep remembering to activate the wyvern, but he's a very easy character to understand and easy to play, which is what's good about him. And as you level up, you unlock more items and new abilities that can augment those powers, and he gets better at setting things on fire or doing some seriously high damage output. Anyway, the game, basically, you have these characters. You've got, like I said, the Pied Piper, who plays very different to Beowulf, who plays very different to Scarlet, which is Little Red Riding Hood. And their whole abilities revolve around those characters and what you know. You've got Romeo and Juliet. They get massive buffs from playing one person playing one playing the other. Aladdin's in this. And all that sort of stuff plays into your role as a character on the team, because they're all very different. You've got Sun Wukong, for example, who has a yin-yang switch ability. It seems like they've put a lot of thought and time into the characters. When you're out on your run, you have the usual kind of leveling up like you'd imagine a roguelike to have. So you level up, which gives you can add to your talent pool. You can find items out in the world, like magical items that can also augment you in different ways, like better defense, better offense, higher crit chance, all kinds of different stuff like that. And so each level, you start off in the main area, which is like the town. We'll call it the town. And you can buy, there's a merchant there, you can buy upgrades or upgrade your things there. Then you go off, and there's various events around the world. So there's enemies absolutely everywhere. There's different events that you can attain. So it might be like, go find the Raven. The Raven will do like an eye on the map and show you what other points of interest. You can find chests full of loot. You can find money. There's things like mini bosses and things you can do around the map. There's always a lot to do, and you kind of have to pick and choose as you're going around, because you have, I think it's 20 minutes per level before the nightmare spawns, so the final boss spawns. And this works really well. Like in multiplayer, it works really well too. So you can do this as a solo game. There's a lot less enemies, or they have a lot higher health pools. And then when there's 4 of you, which is what I primarily played it at, a lot more enemies, a lot higher health pool. And each level is basically the same in the sense that they're procedurally generated in a particular world. The first one's kind of like a fieldy type level, meadows and fields. The second one's like a wrecked ship, and then the third one, which I've yet to complete, is a sort of castle style level. in like a castle town or something. And the game itself, like basically what I've described is pretty much what it is, right? The art style is really nice, the audio is really nice, the sound is really nice. All of this comes together in a really fun package. And honestly, I think the game is really solid. It's I'm not the biggest roguelike fan anyway, but this game for me kind of combines a lot of Hades, combines a lot of like other parts, and makes a really compelling game to play, and it's a lot of fun. There are issues with this game, however, and I think had these things not hampered my enjoyment, I think I'd be a lot higher on this game. I'd be out there being like, hey, I don't even know when this game came out, right? I am enjoying the game. When you start a level and you're just running around the map trying to do the different events and fighting the regular monsters and some of the more like mini boss monsters and things like that, the game's at its best. The game's at its worst when you have to do the nightmare of each level. And I think this is where like there's this realization with something like Hades is very zoomed out for a top-down game. So when you get to a boss, for the most part, you can see most of the boss room. There are times when you're fighting some of the bosses in Hades, for example, where you can't. But the problem with Ravenswatch is when you get to the boss, you're in a big circular arena, and there are times when you will not see the boss on screen. The first boss pretty much stays in the middle of the fight arena, so you can kind of always see it. But the other bosses move around, and because it's a zoomed in game, I have really struggled with some attacks. So the idea is that with any kind of enemy in these games, and any kind of boss, the attack patterns become recognizable. So you might struggle with them at first, but they become recognizable. You go, oh, that thing that's about to slam the ground, that's about to fire a laser. These things are coming off like different points, like a circuit radius and stuff like that. And in some aspects, the game does a fairly good job of making some of those attacks obvious. But there are bosses where you might be dealing with some of the boss's attacks or some of the minions it spawned, let's say at the top of the screen, and the boss is at the bottom. And then the boss will do an attack, and it's not until that attack starts you go, oh crap, and you get hit by it. And I've definitely struggled with this game, where it's like, I don't like ragging on a game that clearly is well made. It's got a nice art style, there's a really obvious direction that they're going with this particular theme, and I think they nail the theme. But it is hard that when one of the big crescendo at the end of each level with these bosses, they don't feel fair half the time. And the reason for that is because the camera is zoomed in. The second part of that is that there is a readability issue with the boss fights, where it's a lot of dark colours on dark colours. Like, yeah, some of the attacks are very obvious. It'll be like a massive flashing cone and it's like, get out of the way. And there's other times where there's so much going on, and even with the 4 players, there's so much stuff exploding and stuff on screen that some of the attacks just aren't as readable as I think they should be. And I know that with a game like this, aesthetic choice and the artists, like what they want to do, they're kind of trying to make it so it fits the game. But I genuinely think when you're doing a boss like this, you really need to think about how readable is it for the player, how obvious. And not every single attack is. Even the wind-up times on some of the attack feels so short. You sort of see it and then you're like, and then you get hit. You know, and I think that's definitely an issue, and it's something that, like, yeah, it's probably a small team that made the game. But if I was going to be critical, and one bit of feedback for this game, it's like, make it superly easy to read every single attack. Not because you need to change the timing of those attacks or all that. Just so as a player, I have that warning of it's coming. If I can't see that coming and I get hit by it, it feels cheap, it feels unfair. I, as the player, should be able to learn those patterns. Right? I might still struggle with those particular attacks. I might still have a hard time dodging those attacks. But as a player, I should always be able to see the attack coming clearly. And that doesn't happen. There's one boss that fight has tons of lasers on it. And the problem is depending on how close you are to the eyeballs that fire the lasers, sometimes you'll be dealing with something, or you might just move into range without realizing, and bang, you get something shot right up your backside. And it's like, it's very hard to fight the boss and also have to dodge like so many things. Like, I get like bullet hells and those kind of shmups of the yesteryear are very much designed that way. But even then, it's like, this isn't that. This isn't a full screen of like, hey, I can see everything coming. This is because the camera is as zoomed in as it is, and because it's like a lot of dark colors on dark colors, it's very hard to read that and recognize that when that stuff's coming, and that leads to that frustration. I don't think the boss fights themselves are particularly bad. I just think it's very hard to interact with the bosses as the player in some of these instances. Now, it doesn't help that when more players are added, bosses get more health, and the same with regular enemies. And it is kind of the worst way to do multiplayer games. It's like, oh, we'll just add more health, we'll make them more bullet spongy. The alternative is not do that and then make the attacks more frequent, or make the attacks like do more damage, but that can also lead to its own problems. I'm not saying there's like a easy fix of this, but I think while I've been playing this game and enjoying this game, the actual levels themselves are super fun. Like the idea of leveling up and trying to get more powerful to deal with the next boss, love it. But the bosses themselves are genuinely, right now for me, the worst part of the entire game. Where it's like, every time we get to the third boss, which in this case is like you have to deal with 2 different bosses, they have different attacks. There's so much going on with 4 people, that and trying to concentrate on one attack and then suddenly the other one's off the screen doing an attack and things like that, it becomes less and less fun. Now, obviously, that can depend on the character you pick, how leveled up they are. Like, I'm not maxed out with Beowulf, like I probably need to like get a few more levels and things like that to help that survivability. But I do think another change that would have massively helped is in Hades, when you fight a boss in that game, the boss fights are the exact same until you've beaten them like 2 to 3 times. And once you've done that, that's when the patterns start to change. In Ravenswatch, the issue I have with the bosses is that they have random attacks. Every time I fought a boss, it has a different set of attacks. You'll see like 1 or 2 that are the same, but then you'll have a different attack added in. And rather than doing that, I kind of wish it had taken the Hades approach where it's the same, it's the same, it's the same. Alright, you've gotten comfortable fighting this, let's chuck something new in then. Because every time I get to that third boss fight, I'm running around trying to learn the fight, I'm doing no damage to the boss, I'm not learning the boss because it's different every time. And it does not encourage me to want to play that part of the game. It's like, this isn't fun because I'm not learning, I'm not having that time to learn. I'm seeing a different attack which is causing me to act differently. I'm not getting in on the boss. And it's just something, I think different people are going to, I think some people will probably disagree and say, well actually no, this game's probably too easy. Or some people will be like, no, the bosses are fine. But as somebody who wants to be able to read what's going on in that fight, like clearly, and wants to be able to see the boss clearly, like then it's just down to me. Then it becomes a skill issue, right? Like if I'm given all the things, right, okay, the boss is always on screen, the camera's zoomed out, you can see what you're doing as the player. Now you have to learn the attacks, you have to learn how to deal with them, you know. Then it's a skill thing. It's about learning. It's about getting better with the character you're using and how they work, right? But it doesn't feel like that. It feels unnecessarily unfair. And I don't want this entire video to be me ragging on the game, because I do genuinely like the game. I think the game is a lot of fun. It's like that, taking that Hades concept and, you know, or the roguelike concept, making it multiplayer and having a blast with it. But there's just these little things. I say little things. The boss thing is quite a big thing for me. But those sort of things do put a dampener on the experience, because it's like, I don't necessarily want to do 1 or 2 runs to complete it. That's not what I'm trying to say here. I just want to, as a player, be able to read the situation every time I do a boss. Because I think that's really important to a player, to be able to understand what's going on all the time in the chaos. The other issue is that with 4 people, you do get a ton. Once everyone's leveled up, there's a ton of part effects and special effects and going off, and it gets absolutely manic. And so that's always a fun one. And then you've also got the whole thing of there being more health on enemies, and some of the later enemies can become such a slog to get through. So it's not a perfect game by any means. There's definitely a lot of balance tweaking that I think could be done, or at least giving that to the players. Like, yes, there is a thing in the actual game you can go and destroy this like boss heart or whatever, and it will reduce the boss's health. That's not really the issue. The issue is just readability. For that. Other than that, I do kind of encourage people to go play it and go check it out. I think it's a lot of fun. I think that the selection of characters is really interesting. They all play very differently. I think you're going to have a lot of fun playing this with your friends. I just think that it's a shame that the boss fights they're difficult, but they're difficult in a way that doesn't necessarily always feel fair. And I think, I'm not saying that's an easy thing to balance, but I definitely wish there was can we tone it down a little bit? Like, can we have it so that we can learn the game, and then, you know, have those multiplayer players, have those different difficulty levels, and have it harder for more XP and all that sort of stuff once I've got a handle on what I'm doing. Because then, for me right now, the joy comes in like leveling up and fighting fights out in the field, you know, dodge timing and all that sort of stuff. Whereas when I get to the boss, I don't feel like I'm learning. I don't feel like I'm really making any progress with the boss, especially the third boss. And you just sort of get there and I'm just like, well, maybe this time I'll do alright. And like, the last time we did it, we did okay, but it's just still like, it's still a frustrating mess of a boss fight, because there's just so much going on, so much off screen a lot of the time, and it's just like, oh god. And the other thing is the dash. Like, I love the dash in the game. Dash is very, very good. You can do a lot of stuff with it. But I genuinely don't know if it's got iframes or not. I thought I could dash through some of the boss attacks, and it turns out you can't. Which is unfortunate. I thought, you know, maybe it does have iframes, but I think having a level of iframes on it, or more so than what it currently has, if it has them, because again, like, you'll dash through something thinking, oh, I'll dash through the laser, doesn't necessarily work like that, and so that can lead to some interesting situations where I'm still in that point where I'm like, does it have iframes? Does it? You know, I don't know. But overall, if you are interested in a multiplayer roguelike, I do think you could do a lot worse. I think this game is a really solid choice. And honestly, it's just one of those things where, you know, games like this, it's a hard line to walk about being too easy and too hard, and you want it to be difficult, but there's a difference between being difficult and being able to read what's going on. And I think this game could just do with making those attacks a lot more obvious, even if it looks a bit weird and not like a bit out of place. I'd rather take that than have it the artistic license to make it all blend together. And I'm like, just put some, like, I don't know, make the things bolder, I don't know, make things brighter. It might look weird, but I'd rather take that so I know that as a player I can see what's going on all the time. Anyway, that's going to do it for me today then, guys. Thank you so much for watching, as always. If you like the video, hit the like button, helps out a lot. If you want to see more content on just about anything gaming, then hit the subscribe button, stick around. Always new stuff in the pipeline. And until next video, I will see you then.